Big changes happening in Washington. So a lot of questions of how this is going to affect us here at home.
Yeah, Governor Josh Green joining us on this Monday morning. Thank you for being here with us, Gov.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, just starting off, you know, we have the tariff war that's happening. And then just yesterday, the president saying, I'm not ruling out the possibility of a recession. So there's just a lot of uncertainty, I feel like. What can we do to make sure that our prices don't go through the roof because they're already so high?
It's a great challenge because a recession is a definite possibility with these tariffs now. We get about $250 million of product to Hawaii each year from China, for example. And if there's a tariff that increases prices somewhere between 15 and 25%, you can imagine what that will do. Everyone has to, you know, kind of tighten up their belt just a little bit in case that tariff comes through. But the recession is a very serious possibility. What also we're doing is we're going to keep lowering taxes. We're going to stick to that so that at least our working families have some cash in their pockets. But there's a lot going on right now. Cuts are also very significant, which means people could be out of jobs. We're going to push back against the tariffs and try to convince the president not to do that.
As we talk about cuts and education specifically, we just did a story on the possibility of the Board of Education closing some elementary schools. You know, that's enrollment based, not necessarily have to do with the appointee that Trump made for the Board of Education or the Department of Education. Are you afraid that the funding dollars that come from the DOE on the national federal level is going to affect students here?
Sure. 11% of our budget comes from the federal government for the Department of Education. A lot of that is special ed, kids who are in the greatest need. Yeah. And we have to probably backfill a lot of those positions if they make those cuts. So what the legislature and I are doing together is we're putting aside between $200 and $300 million to make sure that if those cuts actually come forward, or if Medicaid cuts go forward, that we have enough to kind of buffer the blow. But these are cuts that will actually affect regular people, whether it's increased prices for eggs and food in general, or services for our kids. We do have some capacity, though. We've had a lot of empty positions in the state. We've had over 4,000 civil service jobs open, 1,000 non-civil service jobs, and we're getting applications because of our Operation Hire Hawaii. All these things are very relevant to kind of buffer the blow.
And since you mentioned that, you are really trying to expedite the hiring process, right? People might be a little worried that getting a state job can take a little while, but you're trying to get people in as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's incredible. We knew that we would get some people reacting to an Operation Hire plan. We've already had 1,239 applications. I've told our people to onboard individuals who apply within 14 days, if at all possible. We had like 250 people who are techies apply. We've had over 100 people who do audits and investigations apply. We had 70 people who are corrections officers apply. We've needed a lot of these positions to be filled. So our economy is going to be okay, but there are other things that are happening. These tariffs, like we mentioned before, on cost. Well, also, there's a lot of travelers from international communities that still hadn't recovered fully since the COVID era. And that was about, we were down 35% for international travelers. If they don't come because of the tariffs, we'll see less revenue. So I'm going to do all that I can to fight for our dollars in Hawaii and our programs in Hawaii, but a few of these things may be out of my control. But I'm going to play nice and work with whomever will help us.
I got to ask about the Maui federal funding, because just last week, the Maui County Office of Recovery said that it's estimating instead of $5.5 billion to rebuild, it's more like $7 billion. So if we're looking at, possibly less federal funding, what are we going to do about that?
So that story, it's important to flesh out some additional data too.
Okay.
They're correct though, and you're definitely correct, that we're going to be short no matter what. That didn't necessarily take into account the settlement. So the settlement, which was $4.037 billion, got locked in by the Supreme Court, and most of that money will go to Maui to recover. Well over $2.5 billion of that, after whatever legal fees there are and so on, will go to the people. So that's a big hunk of it. Then there's $1.6 billion from the feds, from FEMA, and also another $600 million, $300 million for water programs, about $350 actually, and another $352 million for disaster relief across our whole state. So it's over $2 billion that I'm going to continue to say, look guys, this fire occurred in 2 years ago. We have to have these monies. And that's why I was in D.C., honestly, to speak to the main people so they know we need these dollars for recovery. Right now, FEMA is still helping us house 1,800 families. We're building over 2,000 transitional houses, which we're well on our way. People should go over to Maui or look at some of the footage you guys have. but we're in the middle of this recovery, and so we can't have the rug pulled out from under us again. So I'll do what I can to be on my best game to get us resources. But all these things are happening all at the same time,
right,
which creates a lot of chaos and uncertainty. So I want people to be calm. I want them to know that each and every battle we have to have, we'll do it in a way that we explain the impact to our people, to actual citizens of our state. All the governors are fighting this way.
And lastly, Governor, it's almost out of time, and I know this is a big issue as well. We heard about these stories on Kona on the Big Island, the ICE raids, undocumented individuals. We're also hearing unconfirmed reports that even kids are being pulled out of schools. Have you heard that? And do you have any heads up when stuff like this happens? I imagine ICE doesn't really let the state or local authorities know.
That's one of the most tragic things that's happening right now, which is true. I was talking to the representative, Janae Capella, from Kona, my old seat actually, and that did happen. At least one family was partially separated from their children. We got the mom and the kids into a hotel. Our Attorney General is in constant communication with ICE, and we have some parameters, those being basically if someone's a criminal, we obviously agree. If they're a serious criminal, have committed major crimes, we will help ICE remove them. We always want families to stay together no matter what. So if someone gets deported or is imminently going to be deported, we got to find a soft landing for them back at home. But it's scary because there were busloads of kids that didn't want to come off the school bus because they knew that some part of their family, maybe a parent, maybe an auntie or uncle who were caring for them, was being pursued. So scaring kids is the absolute worst thing we can do and see. So we're going to fight them on that. We will help the Trump administration if they have a legitimate case that there's a criminal. And otherwise, we're putting out additional parameters for the county police forces to work under because I can't have our people being terrified. And there's that. And then on the international front, I know we're running out of time, the wars have to stop. And we cannot support Mr. Putin. We have to have that come to a kind of calm end without letting a dictator kind of determine the structure of their settlements and their peace. So there's a lot going on in the world. Here in our beautiful Hawaii, we will do all we can to buffer the effects of the federal government. I think I can keep us together for 2 years. After that, if the same behavior is going on, it's going to be difficult.
Well, just to confirm, do you know if a child was pulled out of a school from an ICE raid here in Hawaii?
I can't say that the child was pulled out of a school, but the family was dispersed and separated, and we were able to get those kids back with, in one case, the mom, and another case with some grandparents. But it's unconscionable to separate children from their family, from their parents, and that's where all of Americans are going to have to stand up. There's a lot of battles ahead. All I can say is I'll fight for Hawaii, but I'm worried about what's going on across the board with these cuts and what it will do to regular people. So we can buffer it with some hiring. We can definitely protect children, but we have to speak up. Some of these things are just too much.
All right, Governor Green, thank you for joining us here live on Sunrise today. All right.
We'll be right back after this break.